Testing? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. This is the time set for the July meeting of the DLWID Board of Directors, our first meeting of the new fiscal year, and the first item on the agenda is our roll call. We have all 5 directors here, including our 2 new board members, Tina French and Bill Sexton. Congratulations on your election. Also, not to be overlooked is our incumbent starting a new term, Kent Norris. Congratulations on all of you. And also, I'd like to introduce our new intern, Elizabeth Daniel. Elizabeth is going into her senior year, or maybe you already are a senior at Oregon State, majoring in fish and wildlife with your minor in, what is it?
Marine conservation.
Marine conservation. So Elizabeth will be here for, another 12 weeks? She started last week.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to hear from her later in the meeting. All right, so the next item would be the swearing in of our new and re-elected board members.
So each of the newly or re-elected board members have copies of oath of office, which I would ask you to read. Maybe stand and raise your right hand, if you would.
So all of us do it together? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
honorably
the office
of Devil's
Lake Water Improvement District Director.
Outstanding job of reading.
Innocent read.
All right, let's elect our officers for the year. We have 3 positions, 3 officers on our board: chair, vice chair, and the treasurer. So I'll first entertain nominations for chairman.
I'd like to nominate Kent Norris for chair, please.
I'll second.
We don't need a second. It's okay. I'll nominate David Skirvin.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? All right. Why don't we just do a voice vote? It's not any big mystery. All those in favor of Kent Norris signify by saying aye.
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 I think he's got 3 votes right there. Okay. Kent, you're the new chairman. Congratulations. Next up would be our vice chair. I'll entertain nominations for the vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Tina French for vice chair.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? I think I'll nominate David Skirvin again for vice chair. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Tina French signify by saying aye.
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 Tina just got elected vice chair. We're down to treasurer.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And once again, Bill gets elected unopposed. All right, Mr. Chairman, it's your meeting.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, you bet. Take it easy. Oh, sure. Right here, sir. Let me.
Plates, too. All right. Looking toward this coming year, I think Paul told me that we need to establish a regular meeting date and time and place, and so I assume that second Thursday of the month is still good for everybody. Is that correct? And here at City Hall? So with that, we will
6 p.m.
With that, we'll establish that as our meeting time and date.
6 p.m.
The only
right?
point of discussion there is, it seems like we have a lot of people that try to make these meetings, and in the future, I don't know if we've ever tried to do like a Monday or a Friday meeting to accommodate people that are here on the, I mean, David, would that accommodate you better? I don't know what your schedules are like.
I make it.
I mean, I get that, but would it be better if it was a Monday or Friday?
It's fine, too.
Okay.
Can I ask, Paul, what's the availability of this room?
Well, Mondays would probably be a pretty tough sell. That's city council.
Okay, city council.
Yeah.
Are any other days filled up that you know of?
Tuesdays would be with Planning Commission,
Planning.
and I think that's... we're in overtime issues already, so...
I was going to say
Yeah.
Thursday or Friday should be the same.
Yeah.
I'd like to chime in that if we're going to change the meeting date, maybe we should do so sometime in the future with more advance notice because,
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't suggesting we do it right away.
okay.
So currently, we'll go ahead and keep the same meeting time, date, and place, and we'll visit that sometime in the future if that seems to be something that we'd like to entertain. Very good. Let's see, does everyone agree with the consent agenda, meeting, and financial report?
Make a motion, we adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Chair, I would just iterate that there's a resolution associated with that, as you would have seen, and if we could just enter that resolution into the minutes.
Would you like me to read that, Paul?
Sure, yeah, it'd be great.
Okay. The resolution is such that the transfer of funds from one account to a different one, and so I'm going to read that as such. Whereas the district budgetary estimates were insufficient to cover costs with the May 2015 special districts election, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby transfer $24,000.
$24.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. That's a much better, thank you for catching that. $24.00 from the general fund to the contingency general fund, material services, and elections.
Yeah, so it's from contingency to elections.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can get a new version of this with the corrected chair and treasurers for you to sign, so you don't have to sign this.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's in the form of a motion that we should second. I'll second it. We should vote on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a resolution.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then the vote.
Time to vote, Kent. All those in favor?
All those in favor, thank you very much.
Aye.
All right. The resolution passes.
Thank you.
All right. Comments from citizens present on the agenda or non-agenda items. If I could get that list, please. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to bring to the district's attention any item not listed on the agenda for public hearing. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per citizen, and the Board of Directors may use the light system. Speakers may not yield their times to others, and as a general rule, this is not a time for exchange of questions. At the conclusion of this agenda item, a board member may discuss or raise questions regarding an item presented by a citizen, the chair has the authority to reduce the time allowed for comment in accordance with the number of persons present and signed up to speak. And we have Richard Danielson. Richard? You are. I believe so.
Or was it getting cut off?
I don't know.
Of course, none of us will we? It's the way it is. I like Lincoln City. I grew up here 59 since we moved here, and I have a lot of history here. So much history that you guys boggle my mind. 30 years for you is a boggler. 30 years of improvement at Devil's Lake. Thumbs up. Oh boy, it's a great improvement. John Betts.
Hey, Richard, I accept the compliment.
I'm talking, you're not. And if you want to discuss stuff, I will, but I thought this was not the proper time. So keep your mouth shut, or I will demand extra time. Thank you. So John Betts, a buddy of mine, you may already know this, but I'll give you a brief history of the lake and see if it gives you any ammo. I moved to Devil's Lake, Anchorage in 1959. Some of you probably weren't born when the Anchorage was here and operable, but there was a nice little swimming hole out there in front of the park with a A-frame. He lived in the A-frame. His parents ran it. The docks ran all the way across the lake, and the area from the dock to the bridge was a public swimming area. Most of the kids in the Lincoln City area and half of Portland learned to swim there. The city financed the lessons and paid for a full-time lifeguard for the area. As it was a public swimming area, water quality was constantly tested and never failed. There were boat races several times each year on the lake, and it was considered the fastest water in the world, as it is at sea level, giving motors the full quantity of O2. The lake had an algae content that made the water a bit slick, as the racers said. And the lake usually had a very slight chop that made the boats get a little air under them, made them go faster. That was at 10 to 9:30 p.m. 10 to 9:24 p.m. John Betts. Fishing was good. I never had any problem catching my limit of mostly rainbow trout. The trout and other species had to share the lake with a bunch of fairly big carp. My dad and I surveyed the lake several times and found the water depth was about 8 feet and the mud under the water was 12 to 16 feet deep. The carp were like pigs. They rooted all over under the mud eating. What? Weeds. Seldom were weeds a problem. The Anchorage had a thriving fishing boat rental business in the mornings and a very recreational and ski boat business the rest of the day. Everyone was pretty happy with the lake, almost. The fishing group, John Birch Society, used some political clout and had a Department of Fish and Wildlife poison Devil's Lake in about 1960 or 61. Dead fish all over, stink all over. Then after the lake was cleared of poison, they stocked it with trout and bass and others. I'm sure those fish lived a very long and productive life as the weeds grew up so that no one could fish. Ski boat made trails through the weeds so people could risk death by falling and getting tangled in the weeds. The lake was nearly unusable. Someone came up with a bright idea of putting carp back into the lake. They didn't want to let the carp get away, so they put in that damned dam. The lake level is more stable for those that live on the lake. Maybe that is a good thing. Other than that, Devil's Lake, one of my first loves, is an embarrassment. The lake was so bad that Anchorage closed. The land that it was on is now a park of some kind, certainly nothing to brag about, with the logs and sand piles that make that part of the lake useless and the dam that prevents the lake from flowing like it should to clean itself. There's an island at the end of the lake with homes on the shore. The island had the center of it taken out so more waterfront property was available. Before the lake was poisoned and the canal around the island was pristine and fun for canoes, rowboats could go around. Now it is blocked with logs and rotting stuff and smells like a sewer. I was just there and I'll attest to it. The area cut from the center was done after the poisoning of the lake and had always smelled bad. Remember that before the lake was messed with, it was used for fishing, boating, racing, skiing, and many other uses. It was thriving. Now, how would you describe it? I call it an embarrassment. When the anchorage was there, the ocean would move logs and sand in and under the bridge and leave it there. Every spring, my dad and the city would go together to rent a cat to come in and shove the logs back out and make a beautiful beach of the sand. It was the beach for the swimming area. Now that area is neglected and looks so. Posted John Betts. And I'll leave other comments till the end of the meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Okay. Unfinished business. Devil's Lake Plan. Paul?
All right, thank you. So the first item on that is our septic and sewer item. We've combined those now quite a while ago, but the update that I have for you that is not in your packet because we got just yesterday is we have basically the crux of a full buildable lands inventory thanks to Lincoln County. So they're putting the final touches on that. I'm in contact with them yesterday and today, and so what we can ascertain is when you look on the east side of the lake, and we're looking at properties in the county within the urban growth boundary that could, eventually be annexed or, highly developed, which is what urban planning calls for, or Oregon planning calls for. And so it gives us an estimate as to what that density could look like and what the number of houses potentially could be there. It's going to be a bit of an overestimate, frankly, because we used 5,000 square feet and 7,500 square feet as a lot size without removing what might be required to build a road in between those houses. So it's going to be a fair estimate, but not exact. What'll be interesting is that, there are some good-sized parcels over there that, you could put 50 homes on. And then most of the other parcels, think of like Niatsu, which has a lot of parcels. Well, those are already divided. So there's not very likely, in most of those cases, room for, another house. The issue with sewering the lake, and this is something that is brought out in the Devil's Lake Plan, obviously it's good for the lake for taking existing systems off of septic. I mean, that's definitely a plus, and that's certainly something that is positive. The element that we need to consider is where we may create increased density and suffer increased stormwater runoff as a result, because stormwater is a big impact on systems as well. So, this is more information for that cause, and I'll bring that full buildable lands inventory next meeting.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question or a comment? Just so I understand where we're headed with this, Paul. So I get that we want to know what the buildable lands are, so if we sewer around the back of the lake, we can estimate that all of the vacant lots that are not developed would develop because they could get sewer, and they are not eligible currently for a septic or...
Well, some of them are, and just that the issue with just putting a sewer on Devil's Lake doesn't change necessarily the density. It would have to be annexed and the zoning changed as well. But with sewer often comes that, so that's kind of why we put that forward. Under existing zoning...
Good thing for financing of it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you'd share the costs against a greater number of properties. There's a lot...
We need to basically change the way that we manage the watershed a little bit differently. I mean, it's already...
That's absolutely it. That's absolutely it.
Okay.
Looking at just being clear about density and stormwater can, arm the district, the city, the county with information that may cause really good reason, or cause, again, to have what I've always called like a planning layer associated with the lake.
I guess I just want to be clear that I do not want to give the perception that we want to inhibit development on the lake because of the sewer. So if somebody has land that is developable because the sewer comes in, I don't want, certainly myself, and I would hope this board or you, to try to inhibit that. And I get that there's added stormwater to it, but that just changes our job a little bit in managing that.
Yeah, and that's the point, is that, there's a likelihood that, those places could get annexed and have no sewer and get those lot enhancements.
Sure.
Those are all out in the open. Those
Okay.
are just, that's just the world that we live in. So, certainly the sewer is something that, we really, I think, are pushing for and need to. And it's just that being mindful of development and the impacts that development has, sewer or unsewered. And therefore, one thing that we've talked about, and it's really between the city and the county, it's also listed here. It's the Urban Growth Management Agreement. And what that is basically an opportunity for the city and the county to come to an agreement about how properties, if they should be annexed, would be annexed. And so those are some discussions that we've, not really been part of directly, but have the city and the county have had, and they've basically drafted out such an agreement. And it's really, much of it is just operational stuff that they're doing already. It's just formulating that, and it's something that they actually are supposed to have done. So, but within that, there's an opportunity to create such a planning layer, or that's not probably the right term, but it kind of gives you the sense of what I'm talking about, I hope. But that, like say, yeah, so if you want the increased density, because you've got a lot, 5-acre lot, that right now you can have one house on, and you want that density, and you've come into the city, then you can, as a third party, as I understand this is how this will work, as a third party, you can become part of the city-county's urban growth agreement, management agreement, and then therefore, based on what's in that agreement, get that added density. And so these are things.
Be a third party.
Say a private entity, the private landowner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you.
anything else? Septic sewer, is there anything new on that?
Well, the other announcement I'd leave to Brian about the Voyage LID. That at the June 22nd meeting, there was some pretty good news on that. So,
Would you like to?
Yeah. The good news was that the council finally approved it by formal resolution, and not only that, but I think, at least to my understanding, what the process was, maybe expedited it a little bit, saying that the next step is to put the project out for bid instead of waiting. There's a couple housekeeping measures that need to be done, a couple of ordinances that need to be amended, but they're going to go ahead with with putting it out for bid. I don't know if that's actually happened yet. I kind of doubt it, since the meeting was 10 days ago. The other piece of good news, and it kind of ties into what we were just talking about, is that they've designed into the system a stormwater separator that what it does is it's installed at the area where there's the greatest runoff, and it basically separates out sediment, oil, and grease from the runoff. Has to be cleaned out and maintained periodically because it fills up. And but the good news is that, even if to the extent that sewer does increase impermeable surface area by increased development. And that's not necessarily a given, because with the size of advanced treatment septic systems getting basically smaller and smaller, being on septic versus sewer doesn't necessarily inhibit your ability to develop your property at all. But if impermeable surface does increase with the advent of sewer, the fact that we can, concurrently with installation of sewer, install stormwater separators in the new areas should more than offset the increased runoff from the increase in impermeable surfaces. So that was I think that's just a terrific add-on to the design of the low pressure systems that we'll hopefully be installing around the lake sooner rather than later.
Great, thank you. Let's see, communication report, doesn't look like we have any save our shorelines, no update, vegetation management, no update, communication, Paul?
Yeah, so the big one I think that I wanted to call your attention to on, well, a couple big ones. First off, the Clearwater e-newsletter went out, so you would have got your summer copy of that recently. Thanks to Elizabeth for finishing that off. Basically, we have our intern do 4 a year, and Ava, who was intern last year, did 90% of it, and then Elizabeth came in and polished it off so it was ready for release. And so that's out there, and there's a link to it if you didn't get a copy. If you want a copy in the future, just go to our website, join our email list, and sign up for that, and you're in that, as well as you can get the meeting announcements as well as the water quality announcements. So that's all there. The Devil's Lake Revival, the next item, zooming in, is coming up July 18th, and 10 to 2 at Regatta Grounds. And good news is we've actually been able to secure a pontoon boat. We'd actually look for maybe a second one if there's somebody out there that people know and that would be a private person. We, as you may remember, we don't have access to the marina's pontoons this year. So we were able to secure one. Typically we run 2. My hope would be that David or Bill or other people would captain that one again, and would look for commitments from folks today or soon for that or other parts of the event. And obviously the district board is always welcome to be there at our booth and participate. And everyone's welcome. 10 to 2 at Regatta Grounds. Okay. The other item on this is, as we typically often get a few advertising requests, I brought this one to your attention. Basically, it's an entity that puts these, I think they call them roster wraps, athletic roster wraps, around Taft High School's, event announcements. And so for I have to zoom in on these because I shrunk the size. For either $125, $200, or $300 sponsorship, you can get those kind of sizes that are shown there in your staff report. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, give you an opportunity to jump on it if you wanted to spend that money for this year. Since it was new, I just figured I'd let you have a look at it and decide. Let me know tonight.
Is this new or something we've done in the past?
This would be new. So basically you'd have like the typical thing is a business card size kind of ad in those things.
And what do they put the team pictures around the edge? Is it a calendar type thing?
So it's like the they call it a wrap. So it's like a card stock kind of outer bit that they put like the Friday night's game announcement inside. as, and so it would be kind of in all of those sporting event,
Kiosks and stuff, is that where they're at?
it out when you go into the game. It's been a few years since I've been in high school.
Maybe Tina knows more about this.
Obviously, we get hit up for all of this type of stuff, and I'll just tell you, our company policy is that if it benefits the kids directly, we generally will participate. And I hate to say for sure that this is not one of those things, but I'm pretty sure that this is not one of those things that benefits the kids directly. And honestly, I don't see a reason why a water improvement district would want to advertise, I guess. We're not selling anything.
No.
I agree. I agree with you, Tina.
Yeah, I would agree too.
Okay, easy enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. I'm on to communications.
Safety report?
Yeah, so just an update here. A safety report is part of our our monthly meeting, just so we have a identify safety report. Typically, there's not much in it, but I did put in here that we were out testing the eye wash stations at the lab, and that's something that we're going to take on a weekly basis. Just we're the ones using it, so it kind of makes sense for us to do it. But as they go untested, they tend not to have reliability. So eye washes are kind of critical. So we'll be doing that.
I know in my science classroom I had an eye wash, and we used it once in 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I used it every year to show kids how it was working, and it's really, it's mainly the possibility to build up a bacteria in there that could get in the eye. Once they use it, generally they work.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're right. If there's something that's, or just a particle that falls in it, you might aggravate whatever you're trying to wash out. So, that's good, prudent. They also have a chemical shower, which I'm eking to pull the lever on, but I think it's about a 15-minute run time, so I'm going to talk to this.
We had that happen at our new lab when we first opened our school, and it filled up the room within just a few minutes of time.
Yeah.
With a couple inches of water.
Yeah.
So it floods the room. I wouldn't test it.
Do we have a chemical shower?
At the Oregon Coast Community College lab, yes, there is one, yeah.
Because of the chemicals that we use?
Well, it's just part of the lab.
Oh, okay, so not specific to our testing.
No, it's certainly nice to have that, and there's a fire blanket there, and there's, other suppression, fire suppression material stuff there too, so.
I think it's required by law for all those labs and stuff.
Yeah.
They have all that safety equipment, and hopefully it's never used.
Mm-hmm.
Are we responsible for the upkeep of that lab?
Our portion, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we share the lab with anybody at this time?
Yeah, we have kind of a use agreement with the Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council to basically share our quarter of the back area of the lab, the storeroom, which I know that a few of you have been into the back there and seen it. And welcome to show you what it looks like back there. Basically, that quarter of the storeroom, is ours, and they use that for their E. coli monitoring too. Beyond that, no, there's no other users of that right now.
Okay.
Potentially in the fall again.
Okay. Thank you.
Classroom and such.
All right, Mid-Coast TMDL.
Yeah, so, there hasn't been a meeting since our last meeting of either the stakeholder or the technical working group. I do believe there's one coming up on around the 18th of July, though. I forgot to put that date in there. But yeah, both of those entities are going to meet again soon. We'll be down in Newport.
Mm-hmm. East Devils Lake Road update.
Okay, so we talked about this last time. I put forward, though, just some discussion points. I don't know if we're really at the point to decide, because we don't have this kind of draft of what this Oregon Solutions folks would do. But I just kind of, prompt you to think about, okay, should we participate in this, okay? And if so, at what level, right? General stakeholder, should we be part of the executive committee? What would the time commitment be, and how do we balance that and that sort of thing? should the district help fund getting Oregon Solutions here? I mentioned last time that Oregon Solutions is going to do a cost analysis shortly and provide an estimate as to what the local match would have to be to bring those folks down to run this, process. And then, would Devils Lake Water Improvement District want to have an official position on this process? That may or may not be beneficial, I don't know. I don't necessarily think official positions, rigid positions are really maybe the best way forward when you're looking at a collaborative effort, but it might be good to have the framework of such. Are you for any fix at all? Or are you for all fixes? That's kind of your range. But because this is new and because, I wanted to provide you as a least filter version of what happened at that meeting, I put the full minutes in there for you. I wouldn't anticipate doing that in the future. I just wanted to give everybody the context of what happened at that meeting and where things may go forward. So, I would take any feedback you have now if you want to have a discussion about that, but these are the things that I think you need to maybe consider as we move forward.
Well, as I read through those, I was just wondering what the commitment on some of the other attendees were. We had, Mayor Don Williams. What's the city have in mind, or some of the other people involved? Have they come up and said, hey, this is the commitment we have? And
not to my knowledge, no, because they haven't come back with that estimate of, to do this yet. That would be something we could try to find out and pool together effectively. That's how I kind of see this moving forward. If it's going to move forward with the district support, would be in part and parcel with other local stakeholders, the city, the county, with, the three entities that I can think of, top of my head, that would be kind of fundamental, and we're all in attendance. So no, I don't know that answer right.
But you anticipate that when they're trying to do funding for this, that they would provide, somebody would make a presentation to us about that? Is that correct?
So that's been offered, and just for efficiency, I would think maybe it would be an opportunity to do that with the council and with the county. Maybe have it at one meeting. That doesn't have to be, but if that was offered. It might just be, if you're comfortable seeing it on a piece of paper, you're certainly going to get that too. It would mean somebody coming from likely Portland or Salem to present basically information that's on a piece of paper too at the same time. So, but they were willing to do that. Absolutely.
I guess my off the cuff, the little bit that I've been involved with this as a property owner and somebody who uses that road, is I'm not sure that our involvement is going to change the outcome. Just in talking with the people that I've talked with, it seems pretty tied up in things that are above our head, and with the projects that we have laid in front of us that we're trying to get done, and some other things that I'd like to add to that in the near future. I guess as far as funding for it, I think we're going to need every dime we have plus some to do what's lying before us short term, and staff time for sure. So that would be my off the cuff reply. I'm not opposed to hearing a presentation.
Any other comments?
I think we should hear the presentation. And I think we should pray.
Yes.
See. Come together.
I think that'd be great.
I do too. Okay.
But I do think I think we have to participate in the East Devils Lake Road project. I mean, it's so important to Devils Lake that, I mean, it just looks horrible if we say, well, you know, we don't think there's anything we can do about it, we don't have any role in it. I think our role should be measured. We don't have a lot of man-hours to devote to all the things we need to devote to, but we certainly cannot act disinterested in this. And in terms of financial commitment, I mean, right now, we don't have enough information to, I mean, I'd be willing to say that I would be willing to commit some amount greater than zero. But that'd be about the extent of it.
Those are my dollars.
Well, I guess what we're saying, it sounds like what we're saying is that we need to hear more information, and then we'll make some decisions in the future on that. Okay. All right. Harmful algal blooms, our next item.
All right, thank you. So the aeration oxidation project, we received a proposed contract from Alex Horn Associates of $116,000. This includes contributions from a consulting firm out of Newburgh, HBH, for, frankly, the bulk of that, upwards to 80% of the total. We talked about this at a special meeting we had just recently, and this contract is being negotiated still. We don't have a firm one that we're going to look at bringing, for approval at this point. The number, $116,000, exceeds what we can do for the direct appointment. If we wanted to, nobody wants to pay $116,000. If you could, you'd have to go through another process, and I don't think that's what you want to do. We've already tried putting this out to bid through the formal process. There's an intermediate informal process, and then there's a direct appointment. The informal process is just about as arduous as the formal process. It's not much different. It's just a dollar number that's basically different for the most part. That being said, the items on the proposal that I see, and I think the district would see that could be removed from that proposal, are things we didn't ask for in the first place, or at least a fraction of that, and that's permitting. Permitting is expensive and time-consuming, and expertise is required, and there's a reason that they put 24 maybe?
I think it's 22,000.
22,000 into that, because of, a lot of the time and energy that goes into getting the permit. Excuse me. But because I think that's something that, at least in part, we can do internally. That was the goal, and that's when we wrote that as a proposed scope of work, that it would make sense to remove that, and that's what I've proposed to them. We're waiting to hear back from them as to what options they may be able to provide or may not. Their proposal may stand. I don't know. We'll see.
They actually have to do a permit process through all of the companies. Division of State Land.
It's Division of State Lands, Fish and Wildlife, DEQ, NOAA Fisheries,
Army Corps.
Army Corps, joint permit there, yeah.
Now,
So
are those entities charged?
Richard, I respectfully, if I'm going to give you your time and respect when you have that, if you would give us our time, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
So the question was, are there fees associated with those permits?
Do they, each entity charge their permit?
Most do. I don't think that the Fish and Wildlife would have a fee that I know of, but I have to look into that. But certainly DSL and the Corps, you have a joint permit fee. The reality is the fee is like maybe $750. It's not going to be the make or break of your project. What goes into the process, and in fact, I don't even think their offer included the fees if I had to check back, right? I think it's because
labor.
I think it's
it's the labor.
Time.
Yeah, that's the labor.
So am I correct in my understanding that you basically file one permit and it gets passed down the line accordingly? You don't actually file a permit with each one of those entities?
No, actually, one goes to two. Yeah, so there's a joint DSL, Department of State Lands, and Army Corps permit.
Okay.
Now, the other folks, often weigh in on that permit, and that's, so you often see that kind of down the line, but those aren't necessarily a permit from those entities. It's just comments that go into that, and like Fish and Wildlife will comment on the DSL permit and Army Corps permit. NOAA Fisheries would potentially comment. And so through that process, you may get input, but the others would have their own permitting process too. DEQ would have potentially a turbidity permit, dissolved gas permit that would be associated. Those are the two that they've potentially identified. Whether we have to get those or not, it's not 100% clear. It may just go into the DSL permit and the Army Corps permit as kind of like, do not exceed this amount of turbidity when you install these devices or operate those devices. That may be how that comes out. That's probably why the $23,000. There's a lot of unknowns, and you have to kind of go through the process. And the key is getting stakeholders at the table early, and that would be our goal. Whoever would do it, we can have those meetings with all the statewide stakeholders pretty quick and easily. The federal ones are a little harder to engage because they may or may not even have a nexus, a connection to your permit process, or they may have a very strong one. And so it kind of depends on if that gets triggered, whether or not they engage. And they're not going to typically engage in something that the state's still sorting out.
So we would have to have all of our state permits in line before the feds would even look at it?
It's a possibility.
I think it's similar to the permit I went after. It's a joint permit, and then all the entities participate in it in the fact that they comment on it, and you modify your permit according to their comments.
The comments.
Yeah. And the
So
Corps
by the
would...
time it gets to them, if you've addressed the comments, then it's kind of a...
You're moving along, absolutely. The Corps has, they get triggered to start their permit process with the DSL joint permit. So that happens directly. Now, if there are federal funds that go into a project, say you go after a grant for federal funds, that can trigger NOAA Fisheries nexus, connection to the project, and therefore it can trigger their, demand their scrutiny.
If we don't request federal funds, is NOAA involved in this?
They certainly can be because there's fish there. They have the jurisdiction of the Endangered Species Act.
Because the fish comes from the ocean into our lake?
Yeah.
Fish.
Yep. So they have a nexus if they want it. They can act on it if they want it. If there's a financial connection through federal monies, then there's like a requirement. So it's stepwise.
They don't require onto your permit.
No.
No. Right.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Replacement of water impoundment device.
So I haven't sent those off to those folks yet. That's why there's no update. I'll do that in the next week or so. Just been kind of swamped. So we'll move forward that towards your next meeting.
Tina?
I would like to discuss that and actually talk about this tabling that idea of removing or replacing the impoundment structure because of all of the conflicting testimony that we've had. And I think that with the project that we have in front of us that we were just discussing, I don't see a reason to be moving forward with that. Personally, I was never a fan of the idea, especially replacing it with sandbags. I am not opposed to replacing it someday with a viable option, but I just don't think sandbags is a viable option, or cement blocks for that matter. So I would like to make a motion to table that indefinitely for now and focus our staff time and our time on what we have in front of us that is a viable option clean up the water as quickly as possible.
Do I hear a second? I hear a motion on the
I'll
table.
second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, I think we're asking, we have had conflicting testimony. The point of what we're trying to do now is to resolve those conflicts. I think it's a pretty simple, I've almost been willing to tell Paul, I'll write the letter to Cammie Ellingson and Joe Eilers to say, here, we got this from Hal Pritchett. What's your response? What's your reaction to it? How hard is that? And you know, all information, especially from experts, is good information. And even if we don't take what they tell us any further, at least we know more than we know now, and it's pretty simple to get that information. I mean, I have to ask, well, why wouldn't you want to get that? I mean, there's not a big investment in time at all. Like I said, I'll be happy to do it.
Well, I think,
Burden off the staff.
I guess with regard to the dam removal, I've been down there and looked at it, and I was there with Professor Pritchard, and, you know, I value his opinion of what's taking place there. And I have no desire at this point to remove that dam and replace it with a temporary structure of something different, at least what we've had so far. So I guess my opinion is that, it's kind of like Tina's, is that, hey, why don't we just table this for the time being, put our efforts into something, our aeration project and other things, and maybe look at it in the future.
I mean, we don't have enough money to move forward with the aeration project as it is, and just being fiscally conservative, putting all other things aside, any dime that we spend on replacing the dam is a dime that we don't spend on a project that we all agree we should move forward on. And I don't disagree that the dam probably needs replaced with something better. I just would like to get on the other side of this project and then look at, you know, and I think David hit it on the nail, if we need to sit down and prioritize important, where do we spend our money and time? And I just, that's not a priority for me.
I'm only saying it'd be a simple matter, I think, to, instead of just leaving the question hanging out there, to get closer to an answer, at least move it, take it that one step. We may decide not to pursue it further, but like I said, how hard would it be to just ask the question and get some input back, and take that input and ask, and maybe send it to Hal Pritchett, see what he has to say.
I don't disagree. I just don't think, I don't think we're looking for the answer right now, so why ask the question, is my point.
Well, I'm always looking for answers. You know, as long as it's not you know, an undue burden on the staff and on our time and on our resources, and I don't think this is.
David?
Well, I'm fine with, you know, getting information. You know, whether or not the information leads to anything, or whether the information just closes the chapter, information is still valuable, and it's not a huge, it's not a real time investment, right? It's write the letter, send off Hal Pritchett's stuff, get it back, and then we have the information to make a decision and say we don't want to do anything forward from now. And I think that, you know, if the board decides they want to stop the replacement project, that's fine, but we have the information when we close the books, so, you know, it will be there either way. I think if we're going to get the information and have it, we do it now. You know, I guess that's my point.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. And would you repeat your motion again, Tina, so that everybody's clear?
Because of conflicting testimony regarding the benefits of removing and/or replacing the impoundment structure, I'd like to make a motion to table the replacement of the water impoundment device indefinitely.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Or nay, or whatever.
No.
Thank you. In regards to that, I believe what we should do is I'd like to, we've had an offer from the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association and several individuals that have offered to do dredging of the river and the sand that's piled up there. And I'd like to have Paul engage those individuals as soon as possible, see if that offer is still open, so that we have a sand buildup there. It hasn't been dredged for, 19 years? Is that right, Paul?
I'm not going to guess the year, actually.
I think it was
but
19
it's been
years,
a while
you told me.
like that, yeah.
So it's been a long time.
Too long.
And so at one point, I know that there were a couple individuals with the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association that offered to donate their equipment, their time, their efforts to do the dredging. I'd like to see us engage that group to see if the offer is still available, and if so, then go ahead and start looking for a permit to do that. I think that would help us move in that direction of the things that we saw that weren't going to happen with just the dam removal, and I think that would be a better solution to what's taking place. So I would, as a board, I'd like to see us engage those people. They've said they would do it, and see if that offer's still on the table, and if so, go ahead and look into the permitting process to go ahead and do the dredging of the river, of the sand buildup.
Do you need a motion for that, Paul?
Well, I mean, if you want, I guess, sure. I mean, it's a simple thing. That way we don't have any, confusion as to
Okay.
what's expected.
I'll make a
or
motion
desired.
that the Devils Lake Water Improvement District Board, through Paul, engage the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association and the individuals involved to see if they're still willing to donate their time, equipment, and efforts to dredge the D River. And if so, then start the permitting process to do that. At least we can start it and move forward.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Well, I guess I probably would have done a little simpler motion and suggested that Paul, explore the option and that we, if it's on the table and with the motion, we should just go ahead and, direct Paul to be able to pay for the permitting process, because there will be funds associated with that. So, if I'd be willing to, I guess I would say, I would be willing for the board to pay for the permits if they were doing the work.
I think that's a separate motion. Is that correct, or do we need?
Wouldn't have to be.
We have a second, though.
Either way. I mean, you could amend it or whatever. I mean,
We
it
can
could be
amend it
part
to
of
do that, then?
become part of that. I will ask you to recognize that if you want to get a permit, that's not going to be a small thing.
Oh, I know that.
To go out and just get a permit to dredge the D River, that's going to get a lot of scrutiny.
Right.
You're going to have a pretty good reason and cause, and so beware of that.
Explore the permitting
Yeah.
process. That's what we're asking, is to explore that permitting process. Recently, Paul, I went through this. Mine wasn't as extensive as that will be, but I just truly believe that, hey, we've got a group of people out there that are willing to donate their time and efforts and equipment and such, and that would benefit the lake. It hasn't been done in decades, and we should be engaging those people that are willing to help us.
Well, and I think if we set the precedents now, well, it may be a lot of work now. If it's something that is going to have to be done annually, biannually, whatever, we can address that at this time so that it's not such a huge job in 15 years from now. Because I don't think it's any, secret that every year the D River gets filled with sand and logs. And periodically, whatever that periodically is, we have to remove it. For the benefit of the water quality.
How different is the permitting process from what we have to do anyway every winter when it?
Well, that one's already set.
That's
And that was a pretty extensive permit that the city went and got. It was actually, the application predates the time I was here, so.
So is there any reason why this one couldn't be set? Whatever that means.
Well, It was extended, yeah, so it was, done, and then it had to reapply, and they do, I think, it still has an annual reapplication, if I'm not
But it's not a
mistaken.
big deal once you get through the,
Well, it's certainly a lot lesser of a big deal, yeah. Yeah, it's on the front end, and,
not a big deal anymore when you have to
No.
deal with all these agencies. But I think that if we word our permit correctly, that this has to be done periodically, which is a little bit subjective, whether that's annually, biannually, every 5 years, whatever we deem periodically is.
I want you to see if the city will lend you its file. If you could,
There you go.
Did
never try to be creative when you can just
Yeah,
steal.
recreate
Right.
the wheel.
Are there any more discussion points? Okay.
So did you amend your motion? I'm sorry.
Shall I say it again?
Why don't you go ahead and, why don't you withdraw and
Okay,
redo?
I'll withdraw that motion and make a motion that Paul engage the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association and those individuals who've in the past volunteered their equipment, time, and efforts to dredge the Dee River, and see if they are willing to do that still, if their offer is still good, and if so, we are willing to pay the permitting fees along with that and pursue a permit.
Second.
All in favor? Sorry?
Maybe investigate the permit rather than just pursue it, because,
Pursue it.
okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Okay. Water quality.
okay, so, we've got our summer water quality monitoring program. The updates go out online. I, don't put them in here because they're going to be outdated by the time this gets here. In fact, they were updated, just last night. So, and the email went out this afternoon. So, the crux of it, though, as was shown in the slides as we came in, is the harmful algal bloom is developing. It's increasing, mostly at the mid to southern half of the lake and the shorelines associated with that. Typically, that can change quite readily if you get a big southwest wind that decides to push everything to the north end, and then everything's at the north end, or all mixed throughout. So, the water quality changes pretty quickly out there. And, calm days with that sun, that's really can kick off. And so,
We love on the lake.
lake, yeah, exactly. It's
Paul,
catch-22.
What's the primary organism in there right now?
Microcystis.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it looks like almost like a flake or something as the cells kind of become,
Cilantro,
looks like
we call it.
cilantro.
Cilantro's back.
Okay. Yeah, I think it looks like dead skin cells or something, like a flake of dead skin cell or something. But what that is like a colony. Like what? Like your Bill's been out working in the lake and he's scaling off. It's, like if you flake off skin, sunburns, it kind of looks like that floating around the lake. It's a toxin producer. It's one of it's got its own toxin named after it, so it's one of the kind of more serious ones. We test for the toxin that it produces, the major toxin it produces, which is microcystin, and we do that in our lab with a semi-quantitative approach and a quantitative approach. And so the semi-quantitative approach, we used 5 parts of that kit that we got. So we had 5 sites that we tested, this week. All were positive.
That's the strip kit, right?
That's the strip test kit, yeah. All were positive. One was probably right at the threshold of 10, frankly. It's semi-quantitative. It's you can't definitively say it was how much below 10 too well. You can kind of get a guess at it unless you do like a calibrant next to it, and that's a waste of a strip test, so we kind of tend not to do that. And that site was East Devils Lake State Park, which is where the bloom has been kind of more focused. So it kind of makes sense. Our visual indicators suggest that it's there. the toxins show that it's there, it's likely that they'll increase too, as the summer progresses. So we'll be doing, more testing next week along with the E. coli monitoring. Speaking of E. coli, we had our first hit in the red for E. coli at one site, K Street, Niatsu, we call it Niatsu now. It's a little sample site in Niatsu. Now, this is a little different than cyanobacteria or the blue-green algae. E. coli are coming from the landscape, typically. They could be coming from runoff from a failing septic system, too. It could be just a bird, could be a dog somebody visited down there. That tends to be pretty transient. If there's a week-to-week problem, it's something that you kind of look at more readily. Typically, Devil's Lake is pretty good with E. coli. They're short-lived, and they're only going to live maybe 48 hours in the lake. So that sample that we had in the red, is dead. I mean, something may have replaced it. And that's where you have potentially a systemic problem. That's what you'd be most concerned with. A systemic problem, say a continually failed septic system or something.
So if it was a failing septic, it would be systemic?
Correct. Yeah.
So if it's not systemic, we can pretty much assume that it's a dog or a bird or a deer or something?
Well, to a degree, yeah, absolutely. And those are the things you would look at. Septic systems can also be hidden, too, from being a systemic problem just by the ground being very dry and,
But in
water
the summer
getting
is when we test for E. coli, right?
Right, and that's also when the ground would be most dry,
Right.
too. So you might have a failed septic system that's not bleeding into the lake as readily, or if it's, one system that's at a home that, is visited once a summer, and it happened to be that summer day, and they had a wedding, and it overran the septic system. It might be a failed system, but you might not see it. The thing about the lake itself, we're testing at, these little beaches, and if you had a septic system, very near, you'd probably pick that up. Certainly a sewer spill, it would show, and it would be just constant. When you test in a stream that may have a failed septic system in it, I think we're more likely to pick up that it's a systemic problem.
So let's say we do identify a systemic problem. What's our protocol for that? I mean, would you then try to identify where the problem is, what septic it is? How do you deal with that?
Right. It's a good question. So what we've done in the past is we've done some DNA testing for a different microbe that exists associated with fecal contamination, and that can be differentiated between, say, a human source or a bird source or a dog source, horse. It's expensive.
Have you ever found human DNA?
Absolutely, yeah. Not at that site, because we haven't done it at that site.
So in a systemic
Thompson
site,
Creek.
you found, okay, so who knows
Thompson
where
Creek.
because that can flow from way upstream?
Well, and that's what we do. We've done targeted sampling through that system at multiple spots up Thompson Creek, and then also at the Dee River. So when we started that program, we were focused on Thompson Creek, and we identified in the first go-around, the only thing that we got a positive hit on were actually canines. Well, it didn't mean that was the only problem out there. It was a very small window, 3 days, I think, in August or September of 1 year, right? And, it was informative, but it wasn't definitive. We repeated that, and we got hits on avian sources, equine, and human sources. Didn't get the canines on that next go. Again, what it tells us is that those sources exist. Now, typically, if you could fence the horse off, you're going to do a lot better. If you can get a septic inspection program, you're going to do a lot better. So the solutions are on the ground. The DNA stuff is advanced, and it's expensive, and it's helpful, but It's
I guess
also
what
not
I'm-
going to tell you the address of the house, yeah.
So let's say we identify that we have human DNA coming down Thompson Creek systemically. What are we, as a water improvement district, what's our next step there?
Well, what I think it should be is confronting the county sanitarian and trying to I think it's called for a mandatory inspection program, frankly.
And have we ever done that?
Well, we've done it, we've been working with the city to do that, yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
county has been, and this is not the current county sanitarian, or, but in, the last, 8 of the last 10 years, or 9, their stance has been that they believe the volunteer, what do they call it? I can't recall how they call it. Basically, they require somebody to file a complaint. A whistleblower type, yeah. So
Somebody does that, I guess, take me through what we can do to fix that.
well,
Because, I
think
heard loud and clear from the community that if we have septic problems, let's fix them.
yeah.
And I don't understand, I want to know what we can do to fix them, A, are we doing it, B, and if not, why not?
So, because the county has not been anxious, to put a phrase on it, to develop a mandatory inspection program, they haven't felt that they wanted to invest those resources. We have been working with the city to do
So
that.
can we be a whistleblower for a specific home?
Yeah, you could be, if you had some evidence, yeah. We have passed on reports that we've got from folks, but you kind of need a smell test or something that's real, You need something that holds weight, that they can file the complaint to the county so that they can make that next step. So things that we've done with the city, because like I said, the county has been unwilling, to develop a system to do mandatory septic inspection programs, because they feel like if they do it here, they got to do it up the LC, they got to do it all throughout, and for them it wasn't certainly the appropriate time to do it, or something they weren't interested in doing. The city has committed in the previous time period, I think the date would have been August 2013, to direct staff to develop a mandatory septic inspection program for all
We at with
properties. Well, we're continuing to advocate for it, but they have not brought that forward.
Have we done anything to
Continually, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been something that we've been working on for easily since before that time too. Really since 2009, unfortunately. The thing is, the ball is not in our court, and it's something that we've advocated through this format and many others, and met with staff and met with counselors and said yes, and even at the last election there was, in November, for the council, there was a push, yes, we want this, but now they have a new city attorney, or not new city manager, and more or less a new council. The former mayor was the big push for this. He's no longer sitting. So I think it's incumbent on the district to have those dialogues.
I think part of the problem that you're probably thinking about is, as I understand, the statute that we were formed under doesn't give us the ability to do that. We don't have the enforcement ability to do that.
So I get we can't go knock on their door, but surely we can go knock on the county sanitarian's door and say, this house is a problem.
If we so knew that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can file a complaint, as could a neighbor. And
Have we ever done that?
yes, we have. We've passed on complaints that we've gotten
And have we followed those through?
as far as we could. Absolutely, yeah.
And did anything happen with it?
There were site visits, and
No action.
Well, didn't they did Thompson Creek in the 90s, right?
they did apparently. Yeah, they did a septic survey through Thompson Creek in the 90s.
So that's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
a brand-new septic
Right,
then
yeah.
could,
It'd be defunct, likely. Yep,
About the lifespan. Yeah.
yep.
add that to our goals list, David?
Oh, the secretary's next to you. Yeah, but I agree that this should be on the list.
Yeah, I guess I don't get all the effort that we're putting into sewering, which I don't have a problem with that. But if we know that there's failed septics out there and we're not following through with getting action to get those fixed, replaced, whatever,
So,
that seems
thing
fairly
is
important to me.
finding a spot that says it's failed, right? With sampling, you can maybe bracket on a stream, bracket where it probably is, likely is.
But if we have complaints, a whistleblower, whatever, on a
Mhm.
specific home,
Right,
I mean, I'm not a sanitarian,
right.
but I'm assuming that you can show up at that home with a sanitarian and tell if that septic is functioning or not.
They will typically do a stomp and sniff approach. You know, they have the rules within what they have for DEQ, and so,
Yeah.
you know,
You're looking for gray water on the surface and smell
yeah.
is what they have to go off of to start breaking ground and really investigating into what's
Yeah.
going on.
It's not very,
And this time of year, you're going to be hard pressed to find. I mean, it'd have to be like pipe going right on top of the grass to have any kind of water sitting there.
It seems like the typical pattern is that there is a complaint to the county by a neighboring property owner, and you talk to that property owner 3 or 4 months later, and they're just totally frustrated, nothing got done, and the problem just never gets fixed.
Yeah, there's a property owner on Thompson Creek currently that, I mean, I'm assuming they contacted the new board members, and they're frustrated.
yeah, and I'm aware of that property, and, you know, I've passed that on to the county sanitarian, and so,
I guess I would like
That
us to
came, you
do
know-
more than just pass it on.
well, I
if
guess
we
the
can.
thing is, as a sanitarian, what they want is they want somebody directly to provide information that would
Yeah.
give them evidence to move forward, not, you know, somebody told me that I heard that this is going on. It needs, you know, they need a little something more, and
They really want that firsthand.
they do.
This is what this is what I saw. This is what this is the circumstance. This is when it happened. You know, and get that firsthand witness to be able to say this is my concern, right? This is why I'm telling you, right? You know, those details matter to the sanitarian.
So do we have a log of all of the failed septic systems that we've been notified of, whether it be by a neighbor or by you or by...
We keep track of complaints, yeah, that we get filed, we do.
And do we have identified systems that we think have failed?
We have a catalog of septic systems based on the year they were installed, based on whether or not there was a permit taken. So we have a good sense that we have...
That's the one that Seth did,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nothing of that house has a failing septic.
Well, how would you determine that?
I don't know.
guess.
I don't know. I
That's
mean, is it...
in program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the city has done none, and the county has done none, is basically what I'm hearing you say.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're not going to get out of the cycle of complaints, sniff and...
There has to be a
whatever they
way
call it,
to
and-
develop some sort of
and-
inspection program.
And,
Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Brian.
and, well, I mean, the one that's going to work would be a mandatory inspection program. I mean, the one that has a chance of working, that not only is mandatory, but it's detailed. You get below the surface and
I mean, if we're going to, I'd much rather fund that than SOS.
look at the tank. and-
Well, you know, and I'm not against that idea, but, you know, I think the other thing we're up against is if we are truly on the cusp of being able to do sewer, want to give people the opportunity to hook up to sewer first, or do we want them replacing their septic and then having, you know, another 25 years before those homes
I mean,
go
I'm
on?
assuming the sewer is not going to run clear up Park Lane.
Well, yeah, Park Lane is kind of an interesting thing because it's not on city water, and so that's one
Right.
that's hard for the city, wouldn't even be
So, I mean, if
included.
Thompson Creek over and over again, I hear that's where our E. coli is coming from, that's where we have complaints, and if it's not going to be hooked up to the sewer, we still have to identify a way to move forward with a septic inspection program, because A, not everybody's going to jump on the boat I mean, let's say we put a sewer pipe around the lake tomorrow. If there's failing septics on the lake, they need addressed tomorrow.
Absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree. The thing about, not to just point a thumb or finger at Thompson Creek, although we get high readings there, those systems are in the same soils typically as those that are around the lake as well. And so it's easier to capture that's where the source is, again, because you're sampling right through the system in a stream. So, yeah, if Thompson Creek is an example of what happens in Lincoln County, North Lincoln County, with septic systems that are in the ground for a long time, which I think it is, it's proof that it is, it's very likely that those systems very near it, say Fan Point, say Niatsu, say the east side of the lake, say the west side of the lake, where their septics are in the same situation.
I know, but I guess we can make a lot of assumptions, but until we get an inspection program to follow through with, pretty solid complaints that I've heard tonight's my first night, and I have a pretty solid complaint.
Well, if I'm party to that same complaint, it was frankly very vague. It was just, I heard from a neighbor that there was a...
Did you talk to the neighbor?
We didn't get the contact.
Didn't even get that contact. But the thing is that is why the county wants to get the complaint.
I got her contact information from the county when I called the county to investigate what's going on.
So then the county would then already have the contact, and that's the trigger.
Yeah.
Because it is a county sanitarian role in our county. Otherwise, it would be the state role.
I guess the frustration that's expressed by those that make complaints as well as the board, I guess what we ought to do as a board is make a better effort to get that inspection program, some type of inspection program off the board and active, so that there's some enforcement capability that we don't have. We just don't have the enforcement capability.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
that might be something that we address in our work session.
Kent, there are 2 or 3 different septic servicing companies around the area that would probably be able to provide us a detailed inspection report, so that if we do have a site that needs to be addressed, then we can either hire either one of those companies or direct the county sanitarian to follow through with what they're supposed to be following through with.
I guess if I had a failing system, I probably wouldn't let those people on my property.
Sanitarian has to be going along with that program.
So the county sanitarian has the authority to go on site
Yes.
because they hold a permit.
And some of them don't. Some of them don't have a permit, but yeah, the county sanitarian would be able to do that, especially if there are visual or aroma-driven indicators that there's a problem. It sounds to me, Paul, that it would be great if you could put together a little packet of the history of the septic tank inspection program, because we've had some in-depth conversations on a lot of these topic areas, and I think that it would be beneficial if we could get a summary of it so that we can all review it again. Because I tend to think, at least on Thompson Creek, when we did didn't we end up with mostly canine indicators for the E. coli?
On the first go, and then for the organism, it was avian and human in the
So you had a little bit of everything. Okay.
Yeah. And, just to follow that through, when we were talking about before, the other site that we did that work on was at the D River, and it all came up avian. So, it's not like an E. coli listing at the D River is
the same.
coming out of Thompson Creek.
Sure.
very
I guess
unlikely
I
that
don't
it is.
just want to make an assumption because a septic system is in a certain soil or a certain years old that it is contributing E. coli or other nutrients to the lake that shouldn't be there. That may or may not be true, but it seems to me that there should be a way to, a voluntary test, because I'll tell you, I have a septic system. If it's contributing nutrients to the lake that it shouldn't be, I want to know, and I want to fix it. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. Now, there's also the people out there that probably know that they have failing systems that are like, no, you're not coming on my... But each one that we do is a win, in my opinion. That's where I'm going.
Is there any way we can, as a board, file a complaint to expedite the repair?
If you have a complaint, we can file it, sure.
Was there any benefit
We're
to the-
citizens like everybody else. I mean, we can, we'd probably have to,
Do we
Contact
hold
the
any more
complaining
weight
neighbor.
than
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm
normal?
saying.
Well, see, the thing about, this complaint-driven system is that, my estimation, doesn't work, because ratting out your neighbor is not a lot of fun. And people don't like to do that. So they do it eventually because it becomes a hazard to their own health and property value, potentially, but it's not a very civil approach to a very real human issue.
well, and the other problem is, the only kind of complaints you get are when it's failing at the surface, but when you got an old system that's leaking in the groundwater that's just not visible from the, you don't even know. The only thing that you can go on that the literature is just over and over and over says they don't last, drain fields don't last, they become saturated after 20 to 30 years. Okay, I hear there's some people don't live full-time, maybe theirs last longer, but when you got 650 systems around the lake, a certain percent, and as old as systems and as undocumented a number of systems that we have, you're going to have a fairly high instance of failure, and every year that failure is going to get bigger, and you can't detect a lot of it.
Yeah, it's
Because
all-
we're around the lake, we have a lot of groundwater, and we have drain fields in close proximity to that groundwater that goes right into the lake.
I guess, I hear you, but every one that we fix is a win. And every one that we, so, do we go door to door of the ones that we've identified? I don't know. But to just stand back and identify them and then say they all are contributing to the lake and answer it with a sewer that, we've been talking about for a really long time, and we are making some progress. I get it. But we could have had 15, 20 septic systems repaired, replaced by now, maybe? I don't know. And, I hear you when you say the complaint system doesn't work because nobody wants to rat out their neighbor. The complaint system really doesn't work when there's no action on the back end of it. That's why the complaint system really doesn't work.
So that's an issue with the sanitarian. And, there are systems that have been replaced that they have had to work with, but there are other complaints that I know of that seems to just, there's some fix to it, but it seems that there's probably still some problems with it, but yet the complainant is not satisfied, whereas the county was. So that's kind of another issue. There's a couple of those that I can think of.
I don't think it's a blanket fix, I guess, of we just need a sewer. Because, we just identified that Thompson Creek is probably not going to get a sewer. So we're still going to have to deal with those issues. So we need to develop a plan and maybe it sounds like maybe a little push to get some help there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but let's not lose sight of the fact, conversely, Thompson Creek is probably a good indicator of how bad the situation is all around the lake. Got the same soils. There's no reason for there to be any difference anywhere else around the lake from Thompson Creek, except Thompson Creek is more concentrated. You got a stream, you got houses on both sides, and so the fact that there is a problem on Thompson Creek does not bode well for the rest of the lake. You just have less concentration of the same stuff coming into one area of the lake. but then conversely, you have a huge area.
So this is what I would
The
suggest.
water line.
Because the closest that we've come to a septic inspection program has been through the city and has been from city council, a previous city council, but to staff, a previous staff. I would think that the best way forward is to work with your councilors, and I think it is going to take some collective work that we all have to participate in, because it's your voice actually is to an elected official. We've made this point before. An elected official to an elected official is a very powerful thing, and I think that's a very appropriate thing too. Certainly, I play that role too. But
Do you have
speaking to your
indication of where we left off with that staff and
Yeah,
council?
yeah, it's,
Can you get that to us?
And
Okay.
just as a summary, what it is a mandatory septic inspection program with, parameters, we won't go into the details, but, and it kind of gets at the point that David was making about, do you want to have a septic inspection then without a sewer, and then they get a brand-new septic system, and 25 years later, they have to hook up to sewer? No,
That's
we don't,
always
that's
been-
not ideal, right?
That's been the,
And that's been a contention.
Yeah.
And so the solution, and this was what Mayor Anderson came up with, was to do the mandatory inspection program, shelve it, but have it done. Have it in ordinance, but shelve it until a, ticking time bomb set off that says, okay, we're going to push for sewer, we're going to spend an extra couple years on sewer, which, there's a lot of advancements that the city has done towards sewering, both west side and east side of the lake. And then at the point where if you hit that wall and you said, okay, sewer is not going to happen, we've tried again, then the inspection program would come in.
Can you
And
do
that's,
an
I think,
inspection
been a
like
good-
upon sale?
That
the
would have been
city
one
require
trigger
that?
too. Yeah, that could be a trigger too, yeah.
That's going to be a requirement in our LID,
Yeah.
inspection upon sale.
And
Well, we have
Why
to,
can't it be on the septic?
and most lenders require a septic inspection when they know that you're not on a sewer. So you can't get a mortgage without a septic inspection for the most part.
I mean, that would capture,
That is one.
again,
So that- Again, like,
I know we're not going to capture 100%, but we're not going to capture 100% with the sewer either, so every one we do is a win for the lake.
well, we should be doing both.
with that.
Okay.
And nobody has tried not to do that, I guess. I think that would be clear.
I've been sitting here for
We're,
a
like,
while,
not
and I
trying to
haven't
not
heard,
get sewer
I've
or
heard a lot
septic.
about sewer, which, again, is great, but
Well, what's greatest is push sewer and mandatory inspections.
okay. I just haven't heard a lot about the mandatory inspection.
great.
Yeah, that's been pretty frustrating, because Seth, that was probably the thing he spent most time on was trying to push the mandatory, and we were trying to figure different ways for him to push buttons at the city levels without totally offending people, to pushing them,
And frankly, we were very close in 2008 or 9, I guess it was, and there was an election.
And things change.
So now's the time
And
to-
that changed, and it took a long time to get people to consider basically the same ideas, maybe slightly different, but more or less the same process, and move, and for them to embrace it. And so that time is again now. And again, that's why I say it is incumbent, I think, on the board and staff to do that, to just help re-educate. And we've done that. We've been in front of city council in the last, easily the last 6 months, making those points again, directly. And of course, all the way through this LID process, we've been part of that too. So it's not that the city is not aware of it. It just, it's not probably their number one priority. They've got, and this has been the case before. For a long time, it was Roads End. And then it was VRDs. And now it's VRDs. And now it's VRDs. So, those issues are real for them. And
I mean, maybe anytime you want to get something accomplished, sometimes it's baby steps. So, do we start with a voluntary program? I don't know. I don't have the answers for sure, but
You have the passion.
I don't want to say anything more about it because I think we all get the picture. And
I have one more comment sewer-wise, and that would be pertaining to the city and their sewer pump stations. One in particular, it's on 3rd Street, and their outflow pipe has totally blocked the little canal that it dumps into. So I want to see some action that way, and if I have to be involved in getting action or seeing some kind of progress, removing that pile of whatever it is out of the middle of the canal, that's the direction I'm going to go in. I don't know if that's the only pump station that has never been cleaned out from their outflow, but it's going to be, because they need to be responsible for what they dump into our water.
Well, I'd love to follow up on that. First, I've heard of this concern.
Yeah, it's blocking the whole canal.
So,
It's impassable.
I mean, let's touch base on that.
A tapered pile, just like that.
So the sewer systems are not infallible.
They need to clean up their spoils.
Yeah, and so if there's an issue that's can be identified, certainly something let's talk about that.
Be real curious to have you test that
Well,
particular spot.
that spot had, you say overflow, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So,
Before the generators were installed, right? I'm assuming.
Oh, it's just,
so we should talk about that.
Yeah.
If there's a,
you can just go and drive in there and look, and it's pretty obvious what's going on. But the city of nobody else should be responsible for when they dump material into the lake that it needs to be cleaned out, not just left to sit and.
So, yeah, let's talk about, I'm kind of confused as to what you're talking about specifically, so I don't want to.
Sewers and sewer systems.
Hey, Bill, why don't you just plan a time and we'll go down there and check it out? Because I haven't been down, I know where this pump station is, I've driven by it, but I've never walked behind it, so I'd love to check it out with you.
Well, I'm just kind of concerned with that situation, and then the people that live on the other side of the canal.
Sure.
And marine navigability.
Anything else on sewer, water quality?
Good discussion, though.
Very good.
Turning water quality into sewer and septic inspections.
It's all Brian's, it's right up Brian's alley. All right, new business, Elizabeth Daniel, tell us.
Hello. I think Brian did a pretty good job of introducing me, but I'll do it again. My name is Elizabeth Daniel. I was born here and raised to live here for quite a while until I moved to Bend. I'm at Oregon State now, and I'm a senior, and I'm studying fisheries and wildlife with a specialization in marine conservation. And I've had a good time so far. It's been pretty interesting the last 2 weeks. I haven't been here very long, so I haven't gone through too much, but I got 2 meetings under my belt and some lab tests done, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Any
Elizabeth.
questions?
All right. Non-agenda items. Any non-agenda items from the board?
I have one. I'm going to pass these out, and I put people's names on them, but it doesn't matter. They're all the same. This is the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association and Mitchell Moore settlement proposal sent to the district on June 26th. I'm going to read it. Devils Lake Water Improvement District Board of Directors and all named directors in Lincoln County Circuit Court Case Number 15CV12185, collectively defendants or district, agreed to rescind by written resolution in the form attached the following motion passed during the April 9, 2015 regular board meeting regarding water rights certificates 89980 and 69267. We modify all our existing water rights certificates and permits so that we are entitled to impound water to an elevation of 9.0 feet above mean sea level, which equates to approximately 998.5 acre-feet of storage, and impounding water no earlier than June 1st, and then only if the lake level is below 9 feet above mean sea level on June 1st. Otherwise, to begin impoundment only by June 15th, and impounding water only through October 15th at the latest, with a combination of water drawdown in August and September as required by existing water rights. Defendants, number 2, defendants agree to transmit a copy of the signed written resolution to the Oregon Water Resources Department. Included in the transmittal should be notification to Oregon Water Resource Department that A, the district rescinds and withdraws any notice of intent to abandon or relinquish any portion of the water rights certificates 89980, and 69267, and B, provides notice under ORS 540.6103. The district has and intends to continue maintaining facilities ready, willing, and able to make full use of the water rights of use under certificates 89980 and 69267. 3, defendants will provide copies of the transmittal required under paragraph 2 and copy of certified receipt of mailing or other acknowledgement that Oregon Water Resource Department received the transmittal. Upon plaintiff's receipt of the transmittal receipt, the Oregon Water Resources Department plaintiffs will dismiss the Lincoln County Circuit Course case number 15CV12185 without prejudice under ORCP 54A1A, with all parties bearing their own costs, disbursements, and attorney fees. Defendants agree to perform the activities described before 5 p.m. on July 15th, 2015. I move to accept that.
I will second the motion. Board discussion?
Yeah, I got discussion. This is a settlement proposal of a lawsuit that, one side is proposing and the other side hasn't agreed. So,
We're the other side, though.
but my bigger problem is that there's been absolutely no notice of, you're bringing this up as a non-agenda item. It's kind of, there's been no publication of notice. You're part of a group that filed a lawsuit that after the district published multiple notices and held multiple public hearings over 3 years on the issue of summer lake level, and your lawsuit was the district did not provide proper notice and allow proper opportunity for public hearing, the issue of summer lake level, modification of the water right, and now you're proposing that to take action on summer lake level as a non-agenda item without giving notice of any kind in any way, shape, or form.
It's been through a public hearing.
Excuse me?
This issue has been through a public hearing.
Not the issue of you're basically proposing revoking the application for the modification of the water right. That's just like the equal and opposite thing of what we've already done. If you're going to do that, you need to notice it. You need to have a public hearing about it. And, well,
I believe it...
Or else you're doing exactly... you're doing exactly what you've said that we didn't do in your lawsuit. It's...
Well, what I think the motion is to accept the remediation of that lawsuit by the board. I think it can be done under the non-agenda item portion, and if for some reason we've made a mistake, we can address that at a later time. I second your motion.
Well, the motion's already been seconded. I'm telling you what. Okay, but come on. Someone less restrained than myself might call this like the height of hypocrisy. Your lawsuit is... Two of the claims are that we didn't give proper notice prior to making a decision that affected water rights, and now you're making that decision without not only not giving a public notice and not holding a public hearing, but not even putting it on the agenda. That's... wow. Unbelievable. Let me make a suggestion.
No?
Maybe
I guess...
table this until next month and go through the proper noticing process, so people have a chance to have some input into this.
David, do you have anything to say about this?
You're going to do what you're going to do.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting...
You know, before you do that, well, I know that there's another really important point here. You know, and before we go any further, and Bill, I'm glad you haven't input into this so far, because about or gotten to come to a resolution about the whole possibility for conflict of interest between your position on the board and any financial impact on your business from any decision one way or the other on lake level? Have you? I'm just asking you if you resolve that question in your mind.
No, I don't stand to make any profitable gain off of any decision that I make here. Is nothing that has to do with conflict of interest in my behalf. I'm not going to gain anything.
Well, I mean, we've been told that the maximum lake level causes erosion, which might require retaining walls or
Yeah, that's just an opinion.
or replacement or repair of dock. You know, Bill, I think I'm your best friend here right now because for this reason, that you're with the guidelines, and I always carry this around with me. It's the Guide for Public Officials under the Oregon Government Ethics Law, and under Guidelines for Outside Employment of Public Officials, item 3 says this: the position as a public official is not to be used to take official action that could have a financial impact on a private business with which you are associated. So,
No comment.
Well, okay. You know, it seems to me that given the notice issues and unless Bill is real confident of his position, then maybe giving this issue another month could solve your notice problem, and Bill could, unless he's very confident now of how he's going to proceed, he would have another month to maybe get some more advice and get more confident about the position he should take in this matter.
Well,
A month, you know, it's a solve.
Like I said, I think that under non-agenda items, we can entertain this motion. The motion's been made. It's been seconded. Is there any further comment? If for some reason this is not something that we've made a mistake, that's been made a mistake with, then we can go ahead and back up and rectify that.
Well, the only issue that I'm trying to point out is this: Bill might be standing on the edge of a cliff, and if he votes, he's taking a step. He might be taking. I'm not giving advice here. I'll tell you, Bill, I'm trying to be. Maybe you don't need a friend here, but maybe you do, and I'm just saying. A month, you guys might be doing Bill a favor and yourselves if you put this off for a month. And that's all I got to say.
Okay. I call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, state aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Are there any
This is a two-part thing, sorry to
Okay.
drag this out. As a part of the settlement agreement, I move to approve the following resolution, Devils Lake Water Improvement District, and we can number it however we want to. Everybody should have a copy of this. Resolution rescinding the April 9, 2015 decision to modify the water rights, whereas the Devils Lake Water Improvement District holds in trust water rights certificates 89980 and 69267 and permit number S-52672 for the benefits of its patrons, whereas on April 9, 2015, the Devils Lake Water Improvement District passed a motion to modify certificates 89980 and 69267 and permit S-52672, stating we modify all our existing water rights certificates and permits so that we are entitled to impound water to an elevation of 9.0 feet above mean sea level, which equates to approximately 998.5 acre-feet of storage, and impounding water no earlier than June 1, and then only if the lake level is below 9.0 above mean sea level on June 1. Otherwise, to begin impoundment only by June 15, and impounding water only through October 15 at the latest, with a combination of water drawdowns in August and September as required by the existing water rights. Whereas the April 9th, 2015 motion stated above is the subject of Lincoln County Circuit Court Case Number 15CV12185. Now therefore be it resolved that 1, the motion made and passed on April 9, 2015 to modify the district water rights certificates 89980 and 69267 and permit S-52672 is hereby rescinded and made null and void, effective immediately. Number 2, the district has a facility capable of handling the entire rate and duty authorized under certificates 89980 and 69267 and permit S-52672. 3, the district is otherwise ready, willing, and able to make full use of the water rights under certificates 89980 and 69267 and permit S-52672. And the district will transmit a copy of this signed resolution by certified mail, return receipt requested the Oregon Water Resources Department forthwith.
I'll second that motion. Discussion?
All that under non-agenda items. Unbelievable.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
No.
The motion passes 3-2. I have one other item. It regards lake level. Since appointed to this board a little over a year ago, and I have been in favor of utilizing our full water right of 9.53 feet. This allows us for maximum depth of recreation during the summer months, and I'd like to attempt to reach that 9.53 feet again this summer. We tried last year, but we're not able to make it. I think that we had a mandate from the voters this spring to change the board policy back to our maximum impoundment. In my mind, there's little evidence that 6 inches of water will reduce erosion and or cause septic drain fields to saturate the water table. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to change board policy to impound 9.53 feet beginning April 15th through October 15th. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Well, I guess, does it surprise me? Motion, no. I would hope that you would reconsider at least on the April date. There's a lot of early spring rain that does come through. When you do impound at 9.53 in April, you can have 6 inches of water going over the top of the dam, and a lot of inland that time, and it really makes it difficult for shoreline plants to get established at initial growing period. Proven, we have a track record of being able to prove to where we can hit the 953 if we choose to later in the year. So historically, I think that if you move to the 1st of April or the 1st of June, you do provide some spring flushing. You don't get that extra backup, and you can still hit 953, and you can still provide some really good salmon passage during the outflow time. I'm not going to support an April 15th establishment. Just because we've had several years where we have not started back at April 15th, and the lake is always above 9 feet in April and March and May. It's going up and going down a lot because of the rain that comes in, right? So I ask that you consider at least the date in which you start.
We don't have to exercise it.
That's not what he's...
No, it's just making it board policy.
It's just changing, no different than when the board policy was before, of you didn't have to exercise it one way or the other. It just gives you the option.
Right. That's the intent.
So, and I mean, if what you're saying is true, David, I don't disagree with that, but it doesn't mean that if we get a heavy rain, pull the boards out. Nobody wants to saturate anybody's property or cause flooding or anything like that. Pull the boards out.
Okay. Any further?
Let me just read from the relevant section of Joe Eiler's notes on the meeting and his presentation of the DLWID at the workshop on April 19th. Mr. Eiler is a very widely respected limnologist and hydrologist who says the following in relation to the lake level. If one's goal was long-term protection of the lake, then one would favor a lake stage regime, higher and lower, a lake stage regime that was relatively close to natural cycles, high stage in the wet months with lower stage in the drier months. This has the advantage of allowing the septic drain fields to dry out to some degree and at least reduce the degree of inundation of the septic fields. It also has the advantage of allowing for a natural wet-dry cycle to encourage colonization of native shoreline vegetation. Lastly, a more normal lake fluctuation regime would reduce the constant pounding from wave action at one portion of the lake stage. Keeping the summer lake stage at or near 9.5 feet in the long term will promote erosion at a fairly narrow zone of the shoreline. In addition, the average stage height during the wet period is also near 9.5 feet. Thus, a managed regime of 9.5 feet in the long term would be expected to focus erosion at this portion of the shoreline instead of distributing it throughout a typical annual range of about 8 feet to 10 feet.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Okay. The motion is on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed?
No?
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Are there any further non-agenda items? Okay. We'll open it for additional comments from the citizens present on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to bring to the district's attention any item not listed on the agenda for board discussion. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per citizen, and the board of directors may use the light system. Speakers may not yield their times to others, and as a general rule, this is not a time for an exchange of questions. At the conclusion of the agenda item, a board member may discuss or raise questions regarding an item presented by a citizen. The chair has the authority to reduce the time allowed for comment in accordance with the number of persons present and signed up to speak. Are there citizens that would like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Who you live with?
Hello, my name is Ann Norris, and I live at 3279 Northeast East Devils Lake Road. And I just wanted to add a little bit. I haven't had a chance to talk with you directly about this, Paul, but I'm trying to. This is about the septic system, and I know you guys all discussed it in depth. And I know you'll proceed forward, it sounds like, on that. But in this one case that I specifically do know of, I know this person who has been frustrated by this home situation, and there has been on record that it's only one tax lot, and yet there's a home on it that was condemned because the sewer wasn't working, or septic rather. And so what happened later was another temporary home, which is a trailer of some sort, was put behind it. So now there's two homes on the one tax lot, and the owners live out of state, but this is known to not be functioning, yet there's people living in the home. So I know that it's a process and that it's not anybody's snap of the fingers to fix it, but I think when you know that much at least, I mentioned it to Mark Christie today, the neighborhood association, because this person works with me, and she has been working hard to try to make a difference. In this house in question is right on Thompson Creek. And so some community agencies have been working to get rid of garbage, get rid of old cars. Some of that has happened. But knowing for sure that this is one, I really feel like I would like to see both the neighborhood association and, Paul, whatever you can do in this one. I can talk to you later about the address specifically. I think you already know about it. But this is kind of an example of, like, gosh, we know this much. Let's kind of go forward in this one situation. So that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you. Miles?
Miles Schlesinger, 212 Southeast Keel Avenue. Mr. Norris, I don't think Mr. Green is in a position to criticize Mr. Sexton for conflict of interest. He has been lobbying for sewers, and I think that's a very good job, but he is also a lawyer, and he can get potential business from the fact that people have to form LIDs and things such as that. And for doing that, this is a small community, and Bill Sexton doesn't get a lot from the Devil's Lake Water Improvement District, and Brian Green doesn't get much either. But by working together and not picking each other apart, you can make the lake cleaner and better and benefit the community. And this bickering about Sexton and his contract is absolutely ridiculous. He should be given a 12-month contract and not a 3-month contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Miles.
Are there any others? Mr. Danielson?
Allow me to mute. Keep your job. Be the lake contractor. Who else would we put in there that would even put up with it, with this kind of crap? Seriously. Okay, so.
Find out.
I don't want to get into your face too much, Brian, but I think it's time you retire with dignity. And I'm serious. Skirvin, you're on a sinking ship that sunk. Time to jump. Those life preservers are hung up over there on Randy's wall. We're down by the ramp, so I'd grab one and go find a place. Let this board morph into what it's going to do, and hopefully it does good. I'm banking on it. The lake is banking on it. You guys obviously spent probably 2 hours tonight obstructing progress. Now, I'm going to stop there with that line. You guys seem to forget the lake is dead. The lake is dead. It's been dead since 1986 or so, whenever that dam was put in, and it's still dead. And you guys are squabbling over, well, we can't do nothing about the dam. It helps us water ski. All of our boats have been converted to jet skis, so we can't let the weeds grow because we got jets on our boats and they get clogged. Well, I'm sorry. The lake is not your playground. It's Oregon's lake, and actually it belongs to the Indians, and that's where I'm going to be pushing, who takes over the care and the uptake. But if the neighborhood association, this is going into the other direction of septic systems, I have been in contact with the county sanitarian, the city manager, and the mayor, and they all passed the buck. There is no consensus as to who's going to take the reins. And if nobody takes the reins, the horse is going to throw you. And if you get thrown, that's not good for the lake. You need teeth in an ordinance. Any building permit around the lake should have teeth in it that requires a septic inspection brought up to standards that's the EPA standards. Any building permit, whether it's new construction, remodel, no excavating, no trenching, no rock wall building, zero until an inspection is made on the property or when it sells. Those are the only teeth you need to put in it, and I know each and every one of these homeowners here should volunteer their efforts in getting their inspections, because the reason the lake is the way it is not because some dog crapping up Thompson Creek. There's over 500 septic systems that were built over the last 70 years, and a lot of them are straight pipes. I owned a house, and I know what I'm talking about, that was built in the 30s up in Niatsu. And if I didn't maintain my system every 6 months, my side yard was a swamp. That was the limit of the technology in the day. And it hasn't improved around the lake because we have records that show there are no records. Do your job and get it done.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience? Yes.
925 Northeast East Devils Lake Road. Some many years ago, I resided with the paddleboard, and I know that there was a study done where they did aerial pictures of infrared pictures of the lake. And I recall looking at these pictures, and it pretty much pinpointed and targeted and showed septic systems that were either too close to the lake or in some cases non-existent. So my curiosity asks, what happened to those reports, or is that something that we could do? I'm not supposed to ask questions, but is that something that the board could
You
look
can
into?
ask, you can ask questions as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know about those, Paul. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, and the bulk of that is on the website. That is the EnviroScan study, I think is, I'd have to look at the title, but it's in the 90s. If you go to our research page, what we have on it, I believe, is there.
So if
It was kind of a loose data set, and there was a lot of stuff there, and then a lot of stuff that was kind of not well, like the report was kind of missing. There was some stuff that we,
So if you were contacted, you could point him in the right direction?
Well, my question is, why not look at that technology again, knowing what we know now, even with droids and all the other technologies
Drones,
we have.
not droids.
Drones, droids. With this kind of technology that we have today, why can't we look at those kind of ideas that really pinpoint and show, through infrared where the septics are and where they're too close to the lake, and so we can start to target those areas that are problematic. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think what we heard tonight is that we need a mechanism when we identify them of how to move forward. That's what I heard, is that the identification is one thing, but then being able to have some jurisdiction and or authority to do that is where we're falling short. Is that a good 10-second
I think in saving the
summation?
lake, peer group.
Well, no, I agree 100%, but I think that where the work needs to be done is what we do once we identify it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments? Mark?
Is this yours?
I don't know.
Mark Highland, 2170 Northeast Lake Drive. And I guess I'd like to start by welcoming the 2 new board members, Board Member Sexton, Board Member French. Is that what you call them? Board members or commissioners?
Board member.
Board member.
Okay.
Director.
What my little piece of paper says board
Directors?
member.
Okay.
If you want to be
All right.
technical.
And also to thank Brian and David for your service as well, and Brian for your time on the board as a chair. I know we haven't always agreed, in everything that's gone on and that sort of thing, but I know it is something that it's time you have to put in, and Kent, you'll see that, I'm sure, as well as time goes on. But anyway, just wanted to acknowledge that. I also wanted to thank Board Member French for your line of questioning tonight. That, to me, was the best session of questioning we have had on this board for 7 years, since I was coming to this board back in the Radio Shack. And I think that, and hopefully that the rest of the board will take heed of that. And those are the kinds of questions that need to be asked, whereby we don't assume things happen or things are the way they're said that they are, but we are asked the questions and forced to follow that up. Because I have sat in the same chair numerous times and have asked that we take, most decisions on big ticket items like this get started by using some form of a statistical analysis and or a survey or a sampling of the size. And I just, I've suggested numerous times that rather than a mandatory sewer or septic system test, that we look at providing a sampling. Take a random sample, have an expert, have it statistical. Anybody can do it. You can just, take the number of homes that are out there and grab them out of a hat if you want to, and do it in a public forum like this, and say, look, your house is going to be inspected, and we will pay for it. We will pay for the inspection, not the repair, but we'll pay for the inspection. And that would help you, and it would assist you with the ability of kind of deciphering what actually is involved in an inspection and takes you, how complete is it, and can we make an assessment from that? Because I felt exactly where you were coming from in your questioning, because we have sat here and listened for ad nauseum as to the fact that septic systems and failing septic systems are the major cause to our problem in the lake. Yet, not once have we ever solidified that, and you clarified that tonight by saying, how many of these houses do we actually have that we have sat down and talked to them about it? And I just, again, I would just submit it for thought, food for thought, I guess, down the road on something like that, and then I would just say thank you for your line of questioning. So, anyway. And welcome, Elizabeth, fellow Beaver. Right. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Are there any other citizen comments? Seeing none, are there board comments or announcements?
I have a couple. Hopefully everybody's heard about the Devil's Lake Neighborhood Association Boat Parade. Tomorrow night we meet at Regatta Grounds at 7:30. We have a Grand Marshal this year that is their 40th wedding anniversary celebration. Oh, 25th? Hey, me too. And anyhow, the Florries are going to be our Grand Marshals. They're going to go in a much slower speed this year. We do have quite a bit. We've had communication back and forth with the sheriff regarding lighting and so forth for both the boat parade and the fireworks, which will follow after the boat parade, kind of in between Brown Bear and Regatta Grounds. Those will go off at dark, which is, I think, 9:59 or something like that. So I hope everybody comes out. I also want to recognize Miles. We had a great meeting with Paul and the new Visitor and Convention Bureau Director, Ed Freistad, our new mayor, Don Williams, and the promoter of the Devil's Lake Dash. I don't remember his name either. I apologize. But anyhow, a great meeting on ways that we can promote Devil's Lake and help bring more events to Devil's Lake, and I thought it was a really positive meeting. There's already been positive things that have come out of that. The VCB put the boat parade and the fireworks on their weekly calendar. They had a video crew here for Kite Festival, sent them over to the lake. So thank you very much, Miles, for stepping forward and doing that. I appreciate that. And I think that's all I have. I'm happy to be here.
I'd like to say thank you for all coming tonight. The recent election showed that the board or the public wants to be engaged by the board. And as we go forward in the coming months, I think that as we have our work session and we see some things that are opportunities for the public to become involved more intimately with what's taking place here, we're going to engage you. And we want you involved in what's taking place here on the lake, because we have a strong community, and you will make this successful, this board successful, and this lake better. So I want to thank you all for being here, and be ready. You're going to be asked to do things in the near future.
I want to say that I do want to work with the new board members and have some positive results and just have a positive attitude going forward. And I thought we had a great meeting tonight. With respect to the end of the meeting, I had no doubt regarding the ultimate lake level decision. I mean, we know what that's going to be, and I moved past that. But I would like to have seen the board get off on the right foot in terms of process and respect for the process. And I think in that regard we could have done a lot better, and I hope we will do better in the future, because to do it like we did tonight, I think looks bad, and I think it hurts our credibility. If the lake level item would have been on the agenda with proper notice, I would have taken up what I had to say about Bill's situation with him privately, but there's no opportunity with this coming up the way that it did, and what I felt that what I had to say needed to be said. I am not, I think we could all done Bill a favor by postponing this a month, and I don't mean to say that I intend to do anything about it, but I think that there's a risk there that could have been avoided. And so, having said that, I really do want to work positively with you guys.
We do
and
too.
always, and as
Absolutely.
always with you, sir. And you know, let's get some stuff. Let's get some stuff done. And as I said, the first 95% of the meeting I thought was great.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, I guess everybody needs a wild card, so maybe I'll take that role. No, in all fairness, welcome to the board, guys. Congratulations again on your election, Kent. Or actually, your first.
It is first.
Your first, so congratulations there. Yeah, I mean, I think we've managed over the troubled waters, I guess, is, you know, in our major disconnects, and I think we can move forward on a lot of good fronts and do a lot of good things for the lake, and you know, I'm ready to do that, so let's do that. If we could set a date or a couple of options for doing a prioritization workshop so that we can kind of get together and know what we want to, you know, just make some plans so that we can really, you know, start the ball rolling and not wait, you know, and if we have time the next, you know, before the next meeting, I'm great with that. Make time, anytime, I always do. I know Paul had said that you were wanting to make sure you had captains for the boats.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, are you going to be able to do that
Oh, for the revival.
for the revival?
Yeah, I'll be available. If you want to swap.
I may not be in town that weekend,
Oh, okay.
so I just, you know, feel whether or not.
I'm not here, sorry.
The hoops to try and make that one or not.
It's only a 4-hour deal?
Yeah, it's not 4 hours.
I'm good.
And I don't know if the owner of the pontoon boat's going to want to, but I'm willing to.
I've got it borrowed for this weekend, so I'll be familiar with the vessel.
If you need some kids' life jackets, because we always have a lot of kids, I'm more than happy to borrow those for that too.
Okay. Yeah, this particular individual's got a boathouse full of VFDs too.
Okay, good.
So, thank you.
Great.
Do we want to try to set a date for a workshop?
I'm fine with that.
Is there, I'm assuming it would be at the community
Yeah, just
college?
do it at the community center. Yeah,
At the community college? Okay.
That would be a option.
Is there dates that, does Saturdays work best for people to be able to attend that as far as the community goes? What about us?
let's see here.
I know summertime is tough, but
Well, why don't we shoot for the 25th?
I am not here.
Okay. How about the 1st
When
of
I say
August?
summertime's tough, it's going to, first?
1st of August. Or, you know, I mean, we could do it after our next meeting if you wanted to, the weekend after our next meeting, because we'll all be in town and be available that weekend for the meeting. But I just want to make sure that we get a chance to do that, because as
Sooner
a
than-
board,
That sounds good to me. I mean, I'd rather not, I wish we didn't have
So
to
that'd
put it
be
off that far, but I'm seeing conflicts every weekend up to about
Yeah,
that.
weekends in the summertime for me are really tough.
Okay.
I can
So-
do weekdays pretty much any week, but a Saturday is going to be tough.
well, if you want, I'm fine on a weeknight. getting together and doing that. But if you want to do it on Saturday, we could just go for the 15th of August. That'd give everybody plenty of notice that would be interested in coming, so.
Well, I thought we just said we want to do it during the week, right?
It doesn't matter to, I'm available on the 15th, but I can,
Am I available on the 15th?
I was just looking at my husband as well. Are we home the 15th? I don't have anything on
No, August.
August.
Oh.
So what about Thursday? evening?
Thursdays are typically good. I think the only weekday that wouldn't work for that room would be Wednesdays.
Or what about a Monday? That way people that are here for the weekend could stay over if they wanted to attend the workshop.
Likely that it's available. We'd have
What
to
about a Monday evening, just like our special meeting last week?
Try for the 20th of July then. 7th.
That works for me. Either one.
Let's do the 27th.
I'm available the 20th. I am not available the 27th.
20th,
Bill, are you okay with?
No, Monday.
Monday.
July 20th? Brian, are you there yet?
Yeah, I'm spazzing out of my Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So Paul, can you check on
PM.
availability for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
6 p.m.?
That works great.
6 works great for me.
20th, 6 p.m. We'll book it and let you know as soon as we can.
Thanks, Paul.
Great. Anything else?
I got one last thing. It's just a thank you to the what public is remaining, and that would be to thank all the public that got involved in our campaign. Is that okay? The canvassing was quite impressive, and I think a major part of what we can do when concerned citizens get motivated towards a better outcome. Based on that outcome, that tells me it's time for a cleaner, healthier lake environment. I will move forward in accomplishing these very important topics as an elected board member, and I shall respond to the public with everything available to achieve a common goal to save our lake, and keep moving forward with sound, factual information that is not only beneficial to the lake, but is the voice of the public and the shareholders of lakefront property and surrounding homes in the district. Please feel free to contact me anytime for questions and answers. Lastly, my wife, thank you, honey.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
As far as that vote goes,